Hey, welcome back to the Lefty G Show. Today's topics, why Democrats suck, and let's get into that second presidential debate. All right, here we go.
Break 'em on. This is America First Radio. Patriots, get your ears on because we're blowing the speakers out.
Lefty G. It is time for the Lefty G Show. The only show to get you right. Get ready to get right with Lefty. Your voice taking you down Freedom Road. Now, here's your host, Lefty G.
Let's hit the fucking road!
All right, welcome back to the show, and here we go. Let's start out real simply. Let's start out and let's talk about what Harris stands for, and let's talk about what Donald Trump stands for, and the platforms of both candidates. Because I think both of these platforms from both of these candidates have really been distorted by the mainstream media, and I would like to make it a little bit more clear if I can here tonight. Simply put, here's what Trump stands for. Okay, Trump stands for what I'd like to call a healthy nationalism. And as far as Harris, what does she stand for? An unhealthy socialism. That's pretty much everything in a nutshell. Let's look at it this way. When we talk about Harris and an unhealthy socialism, this is a philosophy of failure, as proven around the world and in history. Socialism, communism always fails and always will. Winston Churchill one time said it best. He said, socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of the envy. A really great line, if you ask me. I loved it. But the thing is, communism's inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery, plain and simple. Any way you slice it, plain and simple. And in today's mainstream media message, nationalism has been distorted into fascism. And this is possible, really, because the liberal vermin they own the media. They own all of the large voice boxes that are just saturating the world with relative bullshit, really. But that's their message. They want everyone to think that nationalism is fascism. And they think that people that are for this country in any way, shape, or form are somehow fascist. And they have taken those of us who love our country and its identity, and they've made us into these evil fascists. They own the narrative, is what I'm trying to say. Google owns the narrative. Corrupt lawyers own the narrative. So anyone who loves America has been turned into a fascist. Let's put it this way. Your uncle is a fascist. Your grandfather, who is laying in a war cemetery somewhere, the liberal commies have turned them into evil fascists. My own father, God rest his soul, World War II veteran. They would probably paint him out to be a fascist because, he was the father of 9 kids and a World War II veteran, and he loved this country. That's who the liberal commies want you guys to look at as a fascist. And let me be clear. The liberals themselves are, simply put, perverted, twisted individuals. So this is the first point to be articulated here on tonight's show. So how is it that those of us who are patriots have turned into evil people? Simple. The liberal media, for the most part, have distorted reality. Look, if you take away the identity of an individual, they become insane. If you take a person's identity away, they become madmen or madwomen. And those of us that have a national identity and love our country and identify with our history, our borders, our culture, our language, are now made out to be something evil by the wackos in the liberal media. The socialists, the communists, the degenerates, the perverts, the obscene, they are now running the narrative, okay? And those of us who are opposed to it are now considered to be fascists by the crazy crowd of Libby-Loo-hoos. Like that term? Libby-Loo-hoos. But I'd like to remind you that socialism itself, which they promise equality, they're never going to achieve equality. And let's face it, who the fuck ever said we should be equal anyways? If you go into a basketball court and you put, say, a midget on the court with a regular basketball player, are they equal? No. There are some that are better basketball players than others, even among equal basketball players. But even those players, those professional players, those college basketball players, they're all not equal. I mean, if you want an answer or fact to that, just go ask Michael Jordan. Boxers look equal in size and power. Some are not equal to others. Well, it's the same with people. We may have equal rights, but we don't have equal ability. End of story. Never had this ever been the case in the history of our country. It's never been that way. The history of the world, for that matter. Go back to the cavemen. So here's the thing. Who came up with this idea that we should be equal? I did a little research on this in my spare time this afternoon because I really wanted to understand the whole edifice of the history of the communist fucked up mind. And the crap that Kamala Harris is pushing, the giggler I like to call her, well, this is actually created by, and you can look this up, look this guy up on Wikipedia, Maximilien Robespierre. This guy was the architect of the French Revolution who created the guillotine to chop the heads off of us, people like you and I, who work to achieve our success. He created a form of tyranny that was based on terror, that was the eventual blueprint for the communism which Kamala Harris is now following. So what you have here really is the ruling elite who control everything and the general public like us under the thumb so the elite pricks can maintain total power. Period. End of story. What they want is a one-party system, just like North Korea. Look at what they've done to states like Illinois, specifically Chicago, with a one-party system. The state's a mess. Absolute mess. Chicago's a fucking cesspool. They're so evil that they don't even want another party to even exist in this state. And don't look at us only. Don't look at Illinois only. Look at California. Look at New York, so on and so forth. Venezuela is a great example of where socialism leads. Now, here's the thing. Leftists are always hung up on their garbage theories and their fantasies, but they never look at the cold, hard reality of what they've created. Just look at the streets of my beloved city of Chicago, and you'd know what kind of a crap of this liberal utopia has created. Here's the thing. I would say this. I would rather be oppressed, okay? I would rather be oppressed and struggle in capitalism than starved by socialism. I'd rather have a job that suited me or a career that suits me, not the one that Harris or Biden is going to give me. You know, Kamala wants to rebuild what is basically the feudal serf system of the Middle Ages. And that is what she means by every time when you hear her say, this is what she means when she says equality and equity. It's like broken glass in my ear every time that this broad utters those words. And that is what the paradise of the worker seems to be, starvation and oppression in her eyes. Socialism literally is the philosophy of failure. There's really not much more I can say on this topic. They have tried to make you and I, the lovers of America, into a bunch of Nazis. But I want to remind you this too, that patriotism is a good thing. Patriotism is not something you should hide. The fact is that this is one thing, patriotism. It's one thing that is going to keep us together as a nation and save this nation from the evil tyrants who are preaching the opposite, which is socialism. Now look, as an example, let me just throw this out there. The North Pole and the South Pole are very similar, even though they're on opposite poles on the Earth. Okay? If you woke up on either side of the poles tomorrow, you wouldn't tell which one you're on. Sure, there might be more penguins on one versus more polar bears, or let's say on the other, but all around you, all you'd see is ice and snow. And that's why I say to you to be very careful, because the socialism that she preaches is not far from the Nazism that Hitler preached in a mild form. National Socialism is Nazism, and this is very close to her current status. She is preaching, giving $25,000 of my money to some frickin' bum to buy a house, where the hell does she get the right to take my money to give to a creepy bum who can't afford a house? This is her idea of middle class. That is Nazism, fascism, or socialism by any other stretch of the definition, which, simply put, is taking from me to give to a bum. You know, in 2005, I bought my first house. I needed a 20% down payment. My house was $180,000 in 2005. That was the price. I needed to come up with $36,000. I could barely afford this. It was every penny with a small loan from my parents to accomplish this. This buying process makes sense. Otherwise, if you give a house to everyone, the homes, their worth itself would become nothing. They become zero, zilch, if you just gave the houses away, which is why houses look like shit in the ghetto, because people don't own them or take care of them. That's why housing projects look like shit. It's because bums live in the housing projects. They don't take care of them because they don't buy them. They have no vested interest in doing anything other than shitting in the toilets. And if the toilets break, I don't know, hang your ass out the window, I suppose. And that, my friend, is socialism. Now, when the housing projects, for example, you can look at old pictures of old Cabrini Green here in Chicago back in the turn of the century, 1910, 1920. I'm talking about turn of the 20th century, folks, 1910, 1920, around that point. Those housing projects, for example, were new. And when they were newly built, they were actually beautiful. And then they gave them to the bums who never worked to get into them. And now look what you have. That's what America will look like under Camel Toe Harris. End of story. That's what it's going to look like. And if you doubt me, come to Chicago. I'll take you to the South Side, or even to areas outside of Chicago, parts of Joliet and Rockford, or other to the like. I mean, the dummy crap mentality has seeped out of Chicago, and in large areas have corrupted and ruined what used to be very beautiful cities, very beautiful tenant houses, very beautiful homes. It's an absolute crap. And this is what the Democrats have done here in the state. That's what they've created. And this is the greatest example of the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy, which, as I mentioned before via Winston Churchill, is what socialism is. So you want state-run socialism under Kamala Harris? Then vote for the whack job. And here soon, we're all going to be eating animals in the zoo like they did in Venezuela not too long ago. So Kamala Harris is herself, right now as we put here, without going down in what I believe is the could be. Let's deal with the here and now. Kamala Harris is herself a vacuous, empty suit. End of story. She's an empty girdle. And that's why she won't even give an interview to her fellow commie travelers of CNN, because every time she speaks, they see what she is, a complete empty canvas. But you see, as I have already mentioned, that she herself may not be evil. I really believe this, but the people around her are. The fact is, having an evil persona takes a certain level of intelligence, and quite frankly, she's just dumb. I mean, every time she's asked a question, she literally looks like a confused, I'll put it this way, she looks more confused than a blind lesbian in a fish market. How does that work for you? I mean, the people around Kamala are very evil and dangerous. That I believe. These so-called progressives are socialists or communists or Leninists, whatever you want to call them, and they're hung up on their theories, their fantasies, but never look at the cold, hard reality of the world they create with their twisted philosophy. They have their theories and fantasies in their universities, but if they go to the streets, they'll get mugged just like you and I will. And they like to, have this utopian idea, but the fact is they'll slip on the crap that bum released from his pants right on the street just like you and I would. And they don't even understand that they've created it, which is a real sign of true insanity, if you ask me. They don't even want to recognize what they've created with their fantasies about America. But we, the people, know that they are preaching the socialism philosophy, which is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. And that's literally why I say current liberal Democrat policies absolutely suck. And how are we going to expose this? Well, I think these debates are the way to start doing that. Obviously, that's what they're here. So that's what they're here for. So now let's get around to the show. That point in the show, we're going to round it out here tonight, folks, with the presidential debate, the potential debate, I should say, which is currently, and albeit very quietly, happening. You know, some of the Trump-hating legacy media is questioning Donald Trump's willingness to have this debate. The man is willing. This is more of a burp talk by the Libby Lou-Who's, because you see, Donald Trump has been challenged to a second debate by Kamala Harris. Is this an ambush? Yes, of course it is. The first debate was meant to be an ambush, but went very poorly for Sleepy Joe and didn't pan out so well for the commies. And as we know, Kamala is at least a little bit more coherent than bumbling Biden. But for the instance and for right now, at least she knows where she is. So that's an improvement. So here's the thing. Trump should get ahead of this and not lead from behind. Do not allow Kamala Harris to do the girl boss thing and not only agree to the debate proposed by Harris, but challenge her to a third presidential debate. Bring up the precedents. The precedence is this, that up until 2020, you typically had three separate debates on three separate networks for the most part. A general debate, a foreign policy debate, and usually some kind of a town hall style debate. Trump needs to get out ahead of her because right now Harris is trying to make Trump look like a coward, like he's cowering. And that's the entire line. The legacy media is trying to cast it off as Trump as being a coward. The truth is, it's really Kamala that's the coward. She may not even agree to the debate rules, even if Trump says, okay, we'll have a debate on CNN. Trump needs to challenge her to two more debates. Trump needs to make it clear that he is the one who wants to debate. Trump doesn't want this to be a presidential race determined by the VP debate itself, Vance versus Walz. Now, there's no question in my mind, Vance will absolutely wipe the floor with Walz. I have no doubt of that. But any more than Walz is not on Vance's level, Kamala is also not on Trump's level. That's kind of what I want to make clear right now. Trump needs to get her on the debate and nail her. When she refuses to answer any questions and goes off into la-la land, Trump needs to focus on that and simply state every time she doesn't answer the question. He needs to make that a point, a sub-point in the whole debate. Kamala will then be exposed to the public as a vacuous and empty girdle old broad. And the problem is this. Most people absorb information very passively. They don't notice when the questions haven't been answered. They're taken on by slogans and pontifications and all that yada yada stuff. And Trump needs to cede his time every single time she doesn't answer a question and put her on the hot seat, put her on the spot. This is a surefire strategy because she cannot answer the questions. The entire strategy will expose her as an empty suit. She is completely retarded. She has zero clue what she's talking about half the time. Biden is also fucktarded, don't get me wrong. But in his defense, he's senile with dementia. With Kamala, she can't answer because she's clueless on the issues. There's a big difference. Trump should accept the second debate and demand a third debate. Give her the CNN debate. Just give it to her. And then have the third one on, say, Fox News, something a little bit more conservative. Go to Fox. This puts her on the defensive and exactly what Trump should do. She cannot answer basic policy platform questions. He'll get her that way. Trump needs to, drag her out of her shell. The more people know about this woman, the more she will be rejected. It's a natural response. She's extremely unlikable, and she has one of the highest disfavorable ratings in the history of vice presidents for that simple reason. She's easily defeated. I think personally, if Trump does this, we're going to be okay. But I think right now, Trump is, let's face it, look what happened last time. I think in a very slight way, Trump is at the risk of losing if he doesn't do this. And here's the thing, just to be clear, I said a little, I said tiny. But just to be clear, I think he's likely to win, but I don't want an 80% likelihood. I want a 99.99999% likelihood that Trump wins because, the alternative is a goddamn psychopath. And to boot, Trump debates, and speeches are really great to watch. They're a source of, influence, comedy, they're everything. I love watching this guy speak and debate. And I say Trump needs to go for a third after agreeing to the second debate. I really think he needs to do that. He needs to put her on the hot seat. So that's it. That's everything. I mean, if you like what you hear on the show, then you're obviously a smart person, and you know what you're facing. So I'd ask you all to please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell button to continue being part of the Lefty G experience. So with that said, that's everything for tonight. Peace with strength. Talk to you later. Good night.